This video was requested by a patron. See how you can request future video topics and get early access to videos by clicking the card in the upper right corner or by clicking the link in the description. And now, on with our feature presentation. By this point, we all know the story of the famous guarantee by Joe Namath at Super Bowl III. With the New York Jets being 18-point underdogs against the Baltimore Colts in the championship game, with the Jets coming from the American Football League, which had been widely regarded as the inferior league and had been blown out in each of the previous two Super Bowls, and with the Colts having lost just once in 16 games, and having lost just 2 of their last 31 games dating back to the end of the 1966 season, the odds were stacked against the Jets to say the least. No one thought they would win. However, Jets starting quarterback Joe Namath, never one afraid to speak his mind, did something unthinkable and guaranteed that his Jets would win the game. It was a bold strategy, and it was laughed at by the American public and criticized internally by his own teammates and coaches. But it worked out. Joe Namath's confidence paid off, as the Jets won their first, and to date, only Super Bowl in franchise history by a final score of 16-7, upsetting the heavily favored Baltimore Colts in what might be the greatest upset in pro football history, and quite possibly the biggest upset in non-international American sports history. But that's the thing about a guarantee. You better make sure it works. You better make sure that when you make a guarantee, that you can live up to it. Because otherwise, you're going to look like an absolute idiot. And I've talked about tons and tons of guarantees on this channel before that backfired in spectacular fashion. You had Cincinnati Bengals wide receiver Carl Pickens guaranteeing a victory over the Green Bay Packers in 1998, which resulted in the Bengals losing the game. You can learn more about that disaster by clicking the card in the upper right corner. You had players on the Atlanta Falcons guaranteeing a victory against the San Francisco 49ers in 1990. Only for the 49ers to not only win, but for Jerry Rice to have 5 touchdown catches and arguably the greatest game of his storied NFL career. You can learn more about that guarantee gone wrong by clicking the card in the upper right corner. But no fail guarantee in the history of the NFL may be bigger, stupider, and more well-known than this one right here. Detroit Lions offensive tackle Lomas Brown was one of the best to ever do it. He's a 7-time Pro Bowler, was one of the most dominant left tackles of the 1990s, and started 251 games while playing an incredible 18 seasons in the NFL. And yet, despite all the accolades, and despite all the recognition, today, when you think of the name Lomas Brown, odds are, you don't think of anything that he did on the field. Rather, you think of what he did off the field during this game right here. Because on December 30th, 1995, exactly 27 years ago to this day, the Detroit Lions played the Philadelphia Eagles in the wildcard round of the playoffs. And before the game, Brown said some words that he would instantly regret and would come to haunt him forever. Because this is the story behind what has to be, without a doubt, the stupidest moment in the history of the wildcard round, and the worst guarantee in the history of the NFL. Before I talk about the actual comments made by Brown, we need some context to understand the team that the Eagles were playing, and why they were feeling so confident entering this playoff matchup. Because in 1995, after starting 0-3 and looking completely inept, including a bad loss to the Minnesota Vikings in Week 2, where they were outscored 13-0 over the final 3 quarters of the game, and a 20-17 loss to the Arizona Cardinals in Week 3, where they led it 17-6 entering the final period, and then got outscored 14-0 over the final 15 minutes, everything changed. After starting 0-3, the Lions held a team meeting with the coaching staff, and convinced them that they needed to change, start playing 3 wide sets, and not run the ball so much with Barry Sanders, because you'll free up running lanes if you pass more, and spread defenders out. The meeting worked wonders. As Brown said on his offensive coordinator, Tom Moore, "Tom, listen. A lot of coaches will act like they are listening to you, but won't do anything. Tom made the change. It was good for the players. We like to feel like we have some input." And from there, Good luck stopping Detroit. After 3 weeks, they were one of 5 winless teams in the NFL. Over their final 13 games, they went 10-3 and looked almost unstoppable in the process, as in that stretch, no team had more wins than the Lions. The only team that had as many wins over the final 13 games of the season was the Kansas City Chiefs, who wound up finishing the season with the best point differential in the AFC and with the best record in the entire NFL. So it's safe to say that they were in some pretty good company. And there were quality teams that the Lions were beating up on too. They beat the San Francisco 49ers, the reigning Super Bowl champions, on national television on Monday Night Football. They beat the Green Bay Packers, a team that won the NFC Central and had the MVP of the league in Brett Favre. And over their final 7 games, they went 7-0, going from 3-6 and looking possibly dead in the water to 10-6 and in the playoffs for the 3rd straight season, and for the 4th time in the last 5 years. They went from a lethargic offense that had players begging for the coaches to do something different to an offense that had the 2nd best offense in football, only behind the San Francisco 49ers, and an offense that had 4 Pro Bowlers on it, including wide receiver Herman Moore, who set the NFL record with 123 receptions. It's not an exaggeration to say that by this point in 1995, the Lions were the hottest team in football, and if they weren't after a 7-game winning streak, then they were right up there at the top. And when you're playing good football, and when you manage to outscore your opponents by 98 points over the final 4 games, with an average margin of victory of greater than 24 points and 4 possessions, you're feeling pretty confident. Heck, Brown said as much when he was talking about the success of the Lions and how they were feeling. As he said, teams fear us. It's a very deserved feeling. I think teams should fear us. I think the only team that can stop us is us. And a statement like that, not even the slightest bit newsworthy. Football player likes how his team is playing, and says that if they play well and don't shoot themselves in the foot, that they've got a shot to beat anybody. That's a whole lot of nothing. And the Lions were going to need this confidence, and were going to keep this momentum of theirs alive if they wanted to beat the Philadelphia Eagles at Veterans Stadium in the wildcard round. Aside from the fact that this was a big game for obvious reasons, since it was a playoff game, this game felt huge for the Lions from the perspective of beating a franchise hex. The last time they won a playoff game on the road was all the way back in 1957, when they won 31-27 over the San Francisco 49ers in the Western Conference playoff. Since that game, they had played 5 playoff games on the road, including one the previous year against the Green Bay Packers in the wildcard round. They lost all 5 of them. The last time they won a road playoff game, Alaska and Hawaii were not states. The American Football League didn't even exist, and the song Tequila did not exist, meaning that every time the Lions played a playoff game on the road since then, they were won and done. This was a chance to usher in a new era of Detroit football, and get this team over the hump. Except, Lomas Brown took things just a bit too far. Because on Wednesday, December 27th, Brown said the quote that would define his career forever. Because he guaranteed a victory. And I don't mean that he said, if we play well, we're going to win this game. And I don't mean, I don't see any reason why we can't win this one. I mean that he full-on guaranteed a victory, and almost seemed insulted of having to play the full 60 minutes, because he wanted the game to be over well before then. As Brown said, there is no question in my mind that we're going to win this game. It's just a matter of how much we're going to win it by, and how long it is going to take. By the end of the first quarter, we want to have this game over with. And just in case you thought that this statement was made in jest, and was a complete joke that was not meant to be taken seriously at all, Brown assured people that he was 100% serious, and that this was no laughing matter. As he said, "I'm serious. The Eagles have a good team and an excellent coach, but we have an offense that nobody can stop. I don't think Philly can stop us. Not if we play the way we played the last 7 weeks." And that, ladies and gentlemen, was all the bulletin board material that the Eagles needed. If you didn't think the Eagles were fired up to play this game already, when they were the underdogs on their home field, then after these comments by Brown, showing even more disrespect, oh man, it got brutal. Eagles head coach Ray Rhodes took the newspaper clipping of the article from the Philadelphia Daily News and plastered it all over the locker room as motivation. Rhodes was downright flabbergasted by Brown's comments and why he would do that, saying, "You don't do that. That's not professional. Really, the only thing you can guarantee is anybody's death, and I'm going to make sure the whole lineup gets a hold of Brown's comments." I like that. I love that. Talk is cheap. You've got to go out and show what you're going to do. After you go out and make your statement, then talk. It's on the bulletin board. Guys will show up. We'll be here. And you can bet that the Eagles got the message, because they were now playing with another chip on their shoulder, as everyone that spoke to the press seemed angry and confused as to why Brown would make those comments. This is just a sample of what everyone said, because just about every Eagles player was asked on this question, and just about every player had a response now that Brown opened up the floodgates. Said quarterback Rodney Peete, who used to play in Detroit and be teammates with Brown, "It's not like Lomas to say that. They don't respect us. They don't give us a chance in this game, as most people across the country don't. Been that way the whole season. He could have done us a favor. They're going to be in a dogfight. They're going to get everything they want from us." Guard Guy McIntyre said, "I never in my life guaranteed any type of victory, only that I will come in and play as hard as I can." Rookie defensive end Mike Mamula said, "It's obnoxious for someone to say that, to guarantee a win. Nothing is guaranteed in this world." Safety Greg Jackson said, "You don't come into someone's stadium and guarantee that you're going to win. That motivates us. He's just added fuel to our fire." Wide receiver Fred Barnett said, "I don't think that was wise. I don't claim to be the wisest guy in the world, but you can't talk that stuff." Maybe he felt they needed something to ride on. Hopefully, we'll ride on it. And tight end Reggie Johnson said, "I'll tell you what, there's going to be some juiced up guys going out there. We were going out there juiced up regardless of if he said it or not. But he's making a bold statement, coming into somebody else's home stadium, guaranteeing a victory." So if there was any doubt that the Eagles had no idea about what Brown said about the game, oh, you bet that they were clued in by the time the game drew closer. Everything was going great for the Lions at this point. The Eagles were fired up. Brown just made himself a huge target, and the coaching staff genuinely thought that practicing indoors in the Silverdome was good preparation for the Vet. Even though there's no wind, the Vet is an outdoor stadium, and the Vet is significantly colder for obvious reasons. But I have to give Lomas Brown a ton of credit, because he was right on the money. No, the game was not over in the first quarter, but it was over by halftime, and especially by the midway point of the third quarter. There was just one small problem. It was because the Eagles were winning. Let's check on that score at the end of the half, and holy sweet mother of gritty and rocky, that is bad. 38-7, and 51-7 at one point midway through the third. That's right. The Eagles ended up winning the game 58-37 after the true definition of garbage time points. But let's be very clear. This one was not even remotely close. The score might say that the Lions only lost by 21, but that is a lie and incredibly deceiving, because the Eagles in the second half were up by 44 points. Let's go over all the ways that this game was bad for the Lions, although this video would probably be 3 hours long if I went over every single way. At no point did the Lions ever have a lead. The Eagles outscored the Lions 31-0 in the second quarter, and at one point, scored 44 consecutive points. The 58 points scored was a Super Bowl era record for most points ever scored in a playoff game, and was the most points ever scored in a playoff non-championship game. Lions starting quarterback Scott Mitchell, who Brown had a great, not even the slightest bit controversial relationship with, was atrocious, going 13 for 29, completing just 44% of his passes while throwing 4 interceptions, including a pick 6, and posting a passer rating of 33.6, which is worse than if he did nothing but spike the ball into the ground on every single play. The Lions turned the ball over 7 times, which had only been done twice in a playoff game over the past decade, along with when the Los Angeles Raiders turned it over 7 times in the 1990 AFC Championship against the Buffalo Bills, and when the Buffalo Bills turned it over 9 times in Super Bowl 27 against the Dallas Cowboys. The Eagles scored on 6 straight drives to end the first half, and had a 10-drive stretch from the end of the first quarter through the end of the third quarter where they scored 9 times. In other words, this game was ugly with a capital U. It was bad on so many levels. As for the guarantee, yeah, it did not work out at all. I know, shocker. And you can bet that the Eagles did their fair share of talking, and rightfully so, after this guarantee backfired in spectacular fashion. Said cornerback Mark McMillan, Lomas Brown said it was going to be over in the first quarter, and it was. He just had the wrong team. Head coach Ray Rhodes said he was talking about walking into your house, slapping your family around you, and robbing you. That's what a guarantee sounds like to me. But Rhodes wasn't done just yet, because he continued to bash Brown for having the audacity to make that guarantee. As he said, if he had been a 2 or 3-time Super Bowl champion, it would be different. He had never been there. The best thing to do when you get in this position is to keep your mouth shut. And as Rhodes finished, he said on his players, quite simply, they were not about to lose this game after the talk that was made. And for those wondering, that was the last game that Brown ever played for the Lions, as he joined the Arizona Cardinals in 1996. What a way to go out. Of all the guarantees in NFL history, this is the peak. This is the quintessential fail guarantee. Almost like how there are certain moments that you know cannot possibly be topped when it comes to other things. There will never be another interception in NFL history bigger than Malcolm Butler's at Super Bowl 49. There will never be another tennis match as long as the John Isner-Nicholas Mahut Marathon at Wimbledon in 2010. And there will never be another guarantee in NFL history that backfires quite as badly, considering the circumstances, as this one by Lomas Brown. Losing the game in embarrassing and historic fashion? Check. Not backing up the guarantee in the slightest bit? Check. Making a statement so outrageous that the entire opposing team gets the message, comments on it, and then clowns on you afterwards for making it? Check. Because on this day in 1995, the Eagles truly put the L in Lomas. Get your official Jaguar Gator 9 merchandise by going to jg9shop.com, and be sure to like this video, ring the notification bell, and subscribe down below if you haven't already, as it helps the channel out a lot. And be sure to check out Twitch every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern for your chance to play NFL Trivia and win cash prizes. Link in the description below. If you want to see videos like this condensed down to 60 seconds, then follow me on TikTok at JaguarGator9. To see college football videos, subscribe to JaguarGator8. To see highlight videos of players throughout the history of the NFL, subscribe to JG9 Highlights. Also, special thanks to all of our Patreon supporters for helping out the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. See how you can become a patron and request future video topics in the description below.